Well, hello there, and in this video we will be going through the 10 most important things you should learn if you are new to GeoGuessr. This will be the start of an ongoing tip series, so if you want to keep up to date with it all, feel free to subscribe. If this video is useful, also feel free to drop a like to let me know. Let's get straight into this. For me, the most important thing to learn first on GeoGuessr is which countries have official coverage. Not all countries have official coverage on GeoGuessr, and what I mean by official is that the coverage is from the Google Maps team. The best way to tell is by looking at the bottom right corner where it will say the year and the word Google. This map is from GeoHints, which is a very useful tip website that I have shared in the description. And pretty much from this you can tell that there is a lot of countries in Africa, the Middle East and Central Americas that do not have official coverage. So it can be very useful to narrow down which countries you would go for on a constant when you're playing Battle Royale. This is also a good map to get started on because it also shows the rarity. Be aware that new official coverage is continuously being added to the game, and this can result in new countries being added that have official Street View. A good example that's not on the map here is Mali. Although there isn't many locations, it still has examples of official Street View, and in the future this could result in more countries having official Street View, or maybe a country that loses its official Street View. The second most important thing to learn on GeoGuessr is basic compass skills and identifying which hemisphere you are in. The most commonest method for identifying the hemisphere is by using the compass and the sun. So with the compass, the red marker means north and the white marker means south. So if the red marker is pointing north towards the sun, then you're in the southern hemisphere, and it'll be the opposite if the south marker is pointing the sun, which will mean you're in the northern hemisphere. In contrast, you can also use the shadows to determine which hemisphere you are on. Although this can be a bit more tricky than the sun, the best way to do it is face where the shadow is pointing, and as you can tell, this shadow is pointing towards the south of the compass, and from this we are in the southern hemisphere. If it was pointing in the north, then you'll be in the northern hemisphere. However, using the sun or shadows isn't always reliable, especially when it is full of cloud coverage, when it is noon, sunset, or close to the equator. In contrast, you could use the direction of where the satellite dishes are facing to confirm which hemisphere you are in. The reason why the satellite dishes are more reliable is it's because it relies on the satellites, and all the satellites are aligned along the equator. So if it is to the south, it will be facing the north towards the satellite. If you want to become more skilled with using the compass, I highly recommend Mate Potato's video, which gets you better at that skill set. The third most important tip is being familiar with driving sides. Most countries in the world drive on the right hand side, so it is important to be aware of which ones drive on the left. This could be useful for ruling out the Americas since they all drive on the right hand side, but it can also narrow down the countries in Europe as well as Asia, Africa. If you can't see what side the cars are driving on, a very useful tip is by using the signs. The sign is on the left hand side, therefore we should be driving on the left. And this could be useful for separating similar countries. Thailand and Cambodia look very similar, but the signs will be on the left in Thailand and right in Cambodia. Learning flags is also very important to be familiar with. You tend to come across flags occasionally on GeoGuessr, and especially on Battle Royale when you're trying to guess quick, it's important to know the flag straight away. And for example, this one here is Thailand, and you can find a lot of these flags throughout the country. The best way to learn flags from my experience is practicing on Sporkle. You can start with country flags, but you can also start learning province flags or state flags, which can also narrow down whereabouts in the country you are at. Be aware that just because you see a flag doesn't mean you are in that country. For example, you can come across flags for embassies as well as just people being on holiday. Google cars are also important to learn. With official Street View, photos are taken from mostly a vehicle or a person with a tripod. Some Google cars are unique to others, and this can be an easy way to identify a country without moving. This Google car is unique to Ghana. What makes it unique is that it has black tape on the front rack. There are many different Google cars that you can learn that are unique to a country, and it is very useful for Africa especially. For example, this big fat white Jeep is unique to Uganda. And you also get this snorkel on the Google car for Kenya. You can also get some unique ones in the Central Americas, including Guatemala and Dominican Republic. And for example, this one's Dominican Republic because of the rubber on the racks. Be aware that Google cars aren't the best solution for the long run. This is because new footage is continuously added to the game which can replace the older footage, and in this case this can be the visible unique Google cars. It is also important to be aware of the different camera generation types. The higher the number, the better the quality it is. This is camera generation 1 and it is the worst camera quality on the game, and this can only be found in a handful of countries, and most of the time it is the US or Australia, but you can sometimes get it in Canada and New Zealand. For Generation 2, it is a bit less blurry, but the quality is still poor, and the main clue here is you have this massive halo in the sky, and it has this purple tint or pinkish tint towards it. Generally, you'll get this massive wide blur with camera Generation 2, and you very rarely see an antenna. This is an exception, but most of the time you will not see an antenna with Generation 2, or just the front of the Google car in general. If it compares to Generation 3, this is a much more clear image. You would see more of the Google car if it is especially a unique one, like this one in Dominican Republic. And if we compare that with Generation 4, it is very similar, but the colours are a bit more striking, and as well as that, the sun in the sky is a lot more rounded, which is a good thing to point out, and also you can see more fine detail within the actual tarmac and grass. It just has more life to the image compared to Generation 3. It is also important to know that you can get specific camera generations in different countries. So some countries won't have, like, for example, Generation 4 or Generation 2. So this map is very useful to use. There are some countries that have issues with the camera where you can see big massive rifts in the sky, and this can only be found in a handful of countries. You can find it in Senegal, Albania and Mont. And on the right you can see a low camera, and you can get low cameras mostly in Japan or Switzerland. However, you can get them very rarely in other Asia countries, including Taiwan and Sri Lanka. If you're stuck in Africa and you see a rift in the sky, you should be in Senegal. For Japan, it is important to be able to confirm low cam. Generally, you will have like a wide blur. However, this is not always obvious, and you can get Generation 2 countries that appear to be low cam. But the best way to see if you have low cam is comparing it to like some fence, or this for example. As you can tell, it's pretty much level with it, so it's much lower down, and also you can compare it with the other vehicles. The 8th most important tip is learning different license plates. You tend to get 2 different sizes, which are either long but thin rectangle or a more thicker plate that looks more like a square to some respect. But you can also get different colours as well with these different plates, and these can be unique to specific countries. For example, the one at the top is a working vehicle plate for Norway, and you won't get a green plate with a blue strip in any other country. The yellow plate in the middle is a Colombian plate, and when you're in South America and most of the vehicles have this yellow plate, it has to be Colombia because the other countries in South America rarely or don't use yellow plates at all. And finally, you have the blue strip, and this is a clear indication that you should be in Europe, but be aware that not all European plates have this blue strip. Another important tip for GeoGuessr is road lines, and this could be the outlines and the road lines in the middle. You would get double yellow road lines in the middle of the road pretty much throughout most of North and South America, whereas if you compare that with Europe, you don't really get double yellow road lines, with the exception of some instances in Norway and Finland. You can also use the road outlines, and for example, this is an image from South Africa, and as you can tell, it's got these yellow road outlines, and this is unique to Southern Africa for the continent. You can also get these yellow road outlines in other continents, such as Asia, so like the Middle East for example. However, a good way to confirm this is look using the sun, of course, confirming the hemisphere, and as well as that, Australia will not have yellow road outlines. So if you split between South Africa and Australia, that is also very useful. The 10th most important tip for me is language, Although language is highly important, the best way you can get familiar with language is checking the websites with the tips, but also just playing the game loads. And there are 3 examples I want to point out that you could use on GeoGuessr straight away. On the left, you have a stop sign that says arrête. Arrête is French. And when you have this arrête stop sign, it confirms you are in French Canada. The one on the right, you can tell you've got some kind of Hebrew on the top, which confirms that you're in Israel. You also have some sign of Arabic. So if you've got like Arabic on its own, there's a good chance you're like in a Jordan, a UAE, a Tunisia. But if you tend to get both, it could be a good hint that you're towards West Bank. Also, you can use unique characters within a given word. For example, on the bottom, we have a C with a tail accent and an A with an accent above it. Those 2 characters are unique to Portuguese when comparing it with Spain. You can get it in other languages, like I'm pretty sure Turkish can have that C with a tail accent, but if you're using this to separate Portugal and Spain, it is very useful because Spain won't have these accents. And this can also be used for Brazil in South America because Brazil speak Portuguese. There are more specialized linguists in the community that can help you out further, so feel free to check out Nujaka's Twitch and I'll show his Discord. And there are plenty of other examples of streamers and players that are much better than me that can help you further. My final advice is just research. Go on YouTube, search all the different tips, ask YouTube what you want to learn, and generally an answer will come up. If an answer doesn't come up and it's more specific, I'd recommend checking out GeoHints and GeoTips first, especially if you're a beginner. Once like you've got the hang of the basics, I'd recommend going on Plunkett. I don't have the logo on here, but the link is down in the description. I'd also recommend checking out Twitch because the streams tend to be very nice and also very open to sharing tips. And that can be very open to find new Discord servers that are specific to GeoGuessr. I'll share some down below, but also the official GeoGuessr has its own Reddit, has its own Twitter, and of course, people on Reddit and Twitter will be sharing tips as well. Other than that, that is it. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to drop a like. If you want to learn some extra tips, I have also made another video that you can find at my end screen here. I will see you in the next video. Of course.